At 68, a doctor I'd known for maybe 20 minutes told me I had 2 years left, give or take. And God forgive me, the first thing I felt wasn't fear. It was the realization that in all those years, I had never once actually lived. My name's Eleanor, 68 years old, from Duluth, Minnesota. For 35 years, I was the town librarian, the one who stamped your books, shushed your kids, knew exactly where everything sat on every shelf, and never, not a single day, went anywhere herself. I did everything right. I saved, I never made a fuss. And then a spot showed up on a scan, and some numbers in my blood weren't where they were supposed to be. This young doctor sat me down, used that careful voice they're trained to use, and told me to get my affairs in order. 2 years, maybe less. I went home to my little gray house on a gray street in a gray town and sat there 3 whole weeks doing the one thing I'd always known how to do best: waiting. What I did next, nobody who'd watched me shelve books for 35 years would have believed, least of all me. I took what money I had and bought a one-way ticket to a town I couldn't have found on a map, with a gun to my head. Puerto Princesa, on an island called Palawan, clear on the far side of the world. And I want to be clear, I didn't go there to die somewhere prettier. I went because I'd finally understood I had never really started. I'll be honest, that first night I thought I'd lost the last of my sanity. The heat hit me the second the airplane door opened, not like weather, like a hand pressing down, thick and wet. By the time I found the little man holding a cardboard sign with my name spelled wrong, my blouse was soaked through. Everything was loud, motorbikes everywhere, no lanes I could make out, people calling to each other, a rooster somewhere, music from somewhere else entirely. I'd read 3 guidebooks on the plane, underlined things, kept a folder, of course. I kept a folder. I'm a librarian. And none of it, not one page, had come close to preparing me for what it actually felt like. I sat in the back of a little taxi with my one suitcase on my lap, watching this hot, bright, roaring place slide by, thinking, Eleanor, you've made the last mistake of a life that was mostly careful. Small mistakes. A dying old woman with a rolling bag, 10,000 miles from anything. I got to the little apartment I'd rented off the internet, sight unseen, sat down on a bed that wasn't mine, under a fan that only stirred the hot air in circles. I didn't cry. I was too frightened to cry. I thought, in the morning, I'll look into going home. Except there was nothing left back there but the waiting. I think that ugly little fact is the only thing that kept me on that bed. Those first weeks were hard in a way I hadn't braced for. The guidebooks show you the water. They never show you the rest. The heat never let up. I was wrung out by breakfast, my ankles swelling like bread dough, and I couldn't sleep for the newness, the noise, and mostly for the thing in my blood that I'd carried across an entire ocean and couldn't leave behind at the gate. That part I hadn't expected. I'd assumed if I ran far enough, the fear would drop away somewhere over the Pacific. It didn't. It found me at 3 a.m. in that hot little room, same as it had in Duluth, whispering the same line. You're wasting the little you've got left. Except now I was wasting it somewhere new. I got sick off something from a food cart. I got lost coming back from a store I'd already visited twice. I stood in a market one afternoon and couldn't find a single thing my hands recognized. Not one. Had to go stand against a wall outside and collect myself. I thought, you didn't start living, you old fool. You just changed which room you're afraid in. And I missed things I never expected to miss. I missed the cold. If you can believe it, a real Minnesota morning, frost on the windshield, that clean, sharp air that wakes you right up. I missed my routine. God help me. I even missed the little cart I used to push down the stacks, that one wheel that always squeaked. There was a book I'd brought along, my mother's old copy of something I'd meant to finally finish, and it sat on the nightstand the entire time, and I never once opened it. I'd lie there before sunrise, doing the arithmetic I'd been running for 3 weeks straight, How many mornings does 2 years actually buy you? If you count them out, it's a terrible thing. Lying in the dark counting like that, I don't recommend it. But slowly, so slowly, I nearly missed it happening. The town started turning into people instead of just heat and noise. First was Nan Lita. Nan means something close to mother, and that's what everyone called her. She ran a little churro 2 doors down. You point at what you want. That's what the name means. Point. A few pots kept warm behind a glass case. 3 plastic tables. A fan wired to the wall. Lita was maybe 65, small and quick, with a voice like a screen door, and she took one look at this pale, sweating, lost thing standing in her doorway and decided I was hers to feed. "Ma'am, you too skinny," she'd say, which wasn't remotely true, and pile more rice onto my plate than any human being needs, standing over me with her arms crossed until I finished it. She never needed me to explain myself, which was the mercy of it. I'd sit at her plastic table with a plate of fish and rice, the fan turning, and for the first time in weeks I felt like a person again and not a diagnosis with luggage. The first place anyone talked me into going was the underground river, and it was Ronnie who did the talking. A young man, maybe 23, worked the tour boats with a laugh that carried clean across the bay. Of course it was him. There's a river out past the city that runs straight into a mountain, right through it, in the dark, under solid rock, one of those famous sights people travel from everywhere to see. I did not want to go, and I want that on the record. A cave, in the dark, on the water, with my knees and my nerves and the thing sitting in my blood. I said no about 4 times. Ronnie has a way of not hearing no that I've since decided is a gift rather than a flaw, and he loaded me into a little paddle boat with a handful of strangers and a guide up front holding a lamp. We went in under the rock, and the daylight closed right up behind us, bats stirring somewhere in the dark, a leathery rustle, the drip of water. The guide swinging his lamp up over these hanging rock shapes, naming them for us. "This one's a mushroom, ma'am. This one we call the vegetable. This whole part is the cathedral." Everyone laughing softly in the dark, voices bouncing back off the stone. I sat in that boat gripping the sides, frightened and amazed in equal measure, and couldn't have told you which was which. I thought, Eleanor, you spent 35 years in a building full of books about places just like this one, and never once. Then we rounded a bend, and a coin of daylight opened up ahead, growing larger, and we slid out into the green and the heat and the birds, blinking like something newly born. Ronnie looked back at me over the strangers' heads with that whole-face grin of his and said, "See, ma'am, not so bad the dark. When somebody bring a light." He only meant the cave. I've thought about that line 100 times since. If today's story has you wondering whether it's really possible to build a life like this, you're not the only one. Every year, more Americans, men and women both, are discovering that starting over doesn't have to mean starting from nothing. Still, somebody gathers the true stories of 7 Americans who left rising costs, financial pressure, and the sense that life had quietly passed them by. Inside you'll find the real numbers too, apartments starting around $280 a month, doctor visits for $12, people living comfortably on around $1,150 a month. No hype, no sales pitch, just honest budgets and lessons that could save you months of research and expensive mistakes. If a simpler, more affordable life overseas has ever crossed your mind, the link's below. $27 for the instant PDF. Your own next chapter could begin tonight. Now, I have to tell you about the day I made an absolute fool of myself out on the water, because I think about it more than almost anything else that happened over there. Everyone kept after me. "You must go island hopping, ma'am. It's the best thing." You take a boat out to the little islands, and Ronnie in particular wouldn't let it go, week after week, until finally I said yes. The morning I climbed down into that boat, a banca they call it, a long wooden thing with bamboo outriggers so it can't tip, I did not tell a single soul, the one thing I should have. I never learned to swim. 68 years old, and I couldn't swim a stroke. My mother was afraid of water and passed that fear straight to me, and I simply never learned. There I was, out past where I could see the bottom. The water, some shade of blue there isn't a proper word for. And it hit me all at once. I grabbed the bamboo outrigger with both hands and would not let go. The boatman said something gentle I couldn't hear over my own heartbeat. Everyone wanted me to get in the water. People slipping over the side laughing. And I said, no, no, loud, sharper than I meant to, knuckles white on the bamboo, a grown old woman gone rigid with fear in front of a whole boat of strangers. I was so ashamed I wanted the sea to just take me and be done with it. That's the day I met Manong Delio. Manong is what you call an older man, another mark of respect. Delio ran that boat, a big, quiet man, maybe 55. Hands like leather, from ropes and sun, missing the top of one finger he never explained. Delio didn't laugh at me. He didn't fuss over me either. He simply cut the engine and came and sat near me on the deck, not too close, looking out at the water instead of at me, which somehow made it bearable. After a while he said in slow, careful English, "Ma'am, you don't have to go in. The sea is not going anywhere. We just sit." So we sat. Then very slowly he got me into a life vest, got into the water himself, one hand on the boat, one hand on the vest, and said, "Only your feet, ma'am. Just let your feet touch it." I did. Just my feet over the side. In water so warm, it felt like the whole ocean had been left out in the sun for me. It took the better part of an hour. Ronnie, floating off a ways, pretending not to watch, so I wouldn't feel it, and eventually I was in that water, up to my shoulders, life vest on, Delio's hand on my back, floating. An old librarian from Duluth, floating in the Sulu Sea. I started to cry, and nobody made a thing of it. Ronnie still tells that story. "Mom, Eleanor, first time, you almost break my boat, you hold so tight." That boy has no manners at all. I love him for it. Then there was Vicky, my neighbor, a woman about 40 with 3 kids and a husband away working on a ship for months at a stretch. Vicky was the one who explained everything, where to find the good mangoes, what things ought to cost, which tricycle drivers would look out for me, and which would take me the long way round. She never once made me feel like the project I surely was. She'd just knock and say, "Hey, Eleanor, we're going to the market, you're coming," and that was that. 8 means older sister. I never had one. I suppose I've got one now. And she's 40. Filipina, and rolls her eyes at me. There it is. I've got to lay out the money part plainly, because I know some of you have been doing that same quiet math the whole time I've been talking, wondering whether a person like you, on what little you've got, could really pull off a thing like this. So here it is. My apartment, small, clean, tile floors, real hot water, and eventually a little air conditioner. I finally gave in and ran me about $345 a month. Food, and I eat well. Fresh fish off the boats, and more fruit than is probably decent, maybe $255. And here's the one that undid me. I finally saw a doctor over there because the fear got loud one particular week, and I wanted someone to actually look at me. A kind, unhurried man sat with me the better part of an hour, went through my papers from home, never once glanced at a screen or a clock. The whole visit cost around $18. Back home, that same hour of a man's undivided attention would have arrived with a bill 3 weeks later, angry, and a fight with an insurance company I'd have lost. And the medicine, the exact same pills that back home I'd been splitting in half some months just to make the bottle stretch to payday. A full month of them ran me a few dollars. I made the girl at the counter repeat the price twice. Slowly, certain my ears had failed me. There's a girl who comes by twice a week, Vicky's cousin, Baby, to help with the